Carbon reform is creating a unique way to decarbonize the built environment.
Currently, the world has too much carbon dioxide, or CO2, in the air, and people spend about 90% of their time indoors, and we want the air, both inside and outside of the building, to be clean. But as a part of that, we also want to be able to make an impact on the planet. So those are all of kind of the things that we wrap up into this one-stop shop, basically, for decarbonization and healthy air for building owners. My name is Jo Norris, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Carbon Reform.
Nick Martin, co-founder and COO at Carbon Reform.
Carbon Reform is a startup company dedicated to clean air for people and the planet. And the way that we do that is through existing infrastructure, so buildings.
The built environment, commercial buildings, residential buildings, are actually a major contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions. What people don't realize is about 40% of global greenhouse gases come from the built environment and what they're made out of.
So we have a retrofit piece of hardware that goes into a building HVAC system, and that removes carbon dioxide directly from the indoor air, and it also filters out other types of contamination from the indoor air. So volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, which come off of furniture, clothing, perfume, cleaning chemicals. We take those out of the air. We also filter particulate matter, so dust, pollen, and we disinfect for viruses and bacteria using a special type of UV light.
So by removing carbon dioxide inside, in addition to other indoor air pollutants, which our technology does, we actually can reduce the amount of heating and cooling that the building does overall on outside air. So that's what our tech is. It's a modular piece of technology that retrofits into buildings and is able to clean the air comprehensively, improve the indoor air quality, and create massive energy savings for the building.
The thing that's special about our approach to innovation is that we are always iterating, always learning from our previous, challenges, mistakes, successes. And in doing this, it allows us to be extremely creative in the way that we approach our innovative technology. And I think our team is a really big part of that. We value engineers just as much as we value creatives. And so everyone working together on a problem, we find that we can create these extremely innovative solutions.
We have a few different value streams, and that's why for us, it's really exciting when we're talking to customers. We can pull these different levers. So in our case, there's actually two pathways for us to get carbon credits. There's maybe the more obvious one, which is the direct removal of carbon dioxide from the air. And those are the permanently sequestered credits that anytime you're sequestering into a mineral, or whether it's geological sequestration, you can get up to really 100 plus years of permanence. And these are credits that are being sold on the open market for $400 or $500 a ton that you see the big companies paying. That's one avenue, and we're exploring ways to basically write our own methodology for our unique pathway to make those credits. What's really interesting, though, is because we have the energy savings of the building from reducing the heating and cooling costs on the HVAC system, that has a CO2 equivalent, which is another type of carbon credit, an avoidance credit. To give you an idea, the energy that is avoided through the heating and cooling is about an order of magnitude higher in the carbon credit than the actual carbon credits that we capture from the air. So there's a lot of really interesting things we can do with different types of credits in our business model.
Design is a huge part of what we do. We are trying to take traditionally very large and sort of intangible climate strategies. So, for example, direct air capture is usually employed as an industrial process. But we're taking it and we're applying it to the commercial sector. So we are making it a thing that goes into buildings that people see and interact with, which is, I think, not the case for a lot of climate solutions. So design is a huge piece of that, because not only does it have to do what we say it does, but it also has to look nice. It has to be understandable as a piece of technology and as something that people interact with. And then additionally, we have to be able to maintain it, service it. So we've designed every piece of that process, down to the folks who come in to do maintenance with us and going through trainings, and we do everything ourselves before we pass it off to anyone else so that we can help design the processes that are a part of that.
I think one of the most interesting and, for me, exciting design challenges that we're working with is anytime you have any sort of distributed or decentralized system, the logistics behind that become very interesting. So in our case, it's really important that we permanently remove the CO2 from the atmosphere. And we do that by sequestering it or storing the carbon dioxide into limestone. So we actually are producing these limestone pellets or rocks that can be used as an input material in green products downstream. So we can create limestone from our carbon capsule units that can be used in concrete mix or carpet tile for future renovations of that same building. So it tells a really cool circular economy story.
So our biggest design challenge so far has been related to the fact that we have made it our mission to not only capture carbon dioxide, but also store it. And that has been extremely challenging because in order to store anything, you need physical space. But we're making a product that is modular and is meant to fit into small spaces. So that has been an interesting challenge to try and go through, kind of work backwards from how much carbon dioxide do we want to capture, how much storage space will that actually take up, how often do we need to exchange materials and move things around, but also not impacting our overall carbon life cycle to the extent that, we can maintain carbon negativity. Since we started tackling this problem, we've wanted to make sure that we're providing a piece of technology that our customers can actually use and that can fit into their infrastructure in a way that's not overly obtrusive. However, we've had to pivot a little bit from having this, be a device that sits inside of a mechanical room unseen to utilizing, aesthetics and marketing essentially to make this something that people want in their space, that they want to show off, so that it can take up a little bit more space, it can be visible. And that's a whole big piece of the design challenge as well, is that, we want to be able to personalize these devices to our customers. So one of the next things that we're rolling out is basically custom branding, essentially, of the carbon capsule so that our customers can have something that fits really seamlessly into their space, but that they can also point to for their employees or for folks that come through the building that, hey, we're working on this problem. We're actually capturing carbon dioxide from this space. We're reducing the energy usage of the space, and we have the cleanest air, in the city.
I've always been interested in taking emerging technology, I would say specifically climate technology, clean technology, and finding ways to democratize access to it, because it's often the case that the people that could benefit from the technology the most, whether it's climate or whether it's health tech, it takes decades to actually reach them. So I've always been really interested about starting a company, and from the beginning being very intentional about how do we create access to the most vulnerable population. So in our case, buildings in underserved and under-resourced areas have some of the worst indoor air quality, and we spend 90% of our time indoors. There's some really interesting data out there to show that the indoor air quality inside of a school can have as much a determinant to a student's success as their GPA. So when we're talking about schools in underserved areas that don't have the budget to make these complete overhauls to their HVAC system or what have you, if we can come in there and provide a solution that we already come with financing opportunities to immediately implement that to improve students' learning, that's exciting for me.
Everything that we do is impact driven. Poor air quality often impacts the most underserved areas the most. So we think about impact in that way. We think about the impact of lower carbon dioxide levels on sick building syndrome and productivity and just overall well-being and happiness. So these are things that are a little bit more difficult to measure, although we are starting to implement strategies that will allow us to do so. And a lot of our customers are interested in that as well, which is great because people want metrics. People want to be able to track these things. I think social metrics are a bit more tricky, but we are, working towards that piece.
What I hope our customers experience is a direct benefit from the technology. CO2 specifically impacts your ability to focus, to concentrate. One of our early pilots in a fitness center, we actually had, every time we'd have one of our engineers go and change out our filters, we'd have people working out saying that they've never worked out better, the air feels cleaner. So that's just like a direct benefit right there. I think the other one is the energy savings, and you see that on your utility bill. And that's really exciting for any stakeholder, like whether that's the actual tenant themselves or the building owner, that they can see a tangible change, whether that's qualitative or quantitative after our technology is deployed.
So if all my wildest wishes came true for carbon reform, would first mean that we weren't the only ones. We cannot be the only climate technology company that succeeds. We really want to be surrounded by other folks who are also working on these problems. And so far we've seen that we are. We interact quite often with other climate technology companies who are working towards really incredible things. The world that I would imagine would be clean, would have clean air, would have storage solutions for CO2. Maybe we can blast it off into space or find a way to make really interesting materials out of it. We're working on making sustainable concrete with our captured CO2. So maybe all the buildings around us would be made of captured carbon, So I think that there is a possibility for this. I don't think it's just a utopian dream, but I think it will take a lot of work from us, but also from the people around us. And that includes other types of private sector, other types of climate technology companies, but also government entities, nonprofits, design companies who can help facilitate the message, artists. I think everyone will need to be involved. I firmly believe that if you're not currently working in climate, you will be within 10 years. So that's what the world would look like to me.
The work that happens to drive positive change happens one logo at a time, right? Like one product design at a time, one interaction that we're trying to support in that product design at a time, one machine that carbon reform is inputting into one building. Yeah. And that happens over and over again, and eventually that work becomes part of shaping the bigger picture.
Right.